Learn English with the News lesson. We'll review a news article on Donald Trump's second visit to the UK to meet King Charles. As we read the article, you'll improve all areas of your English by learning advanced words, phrases, grammar, and pronunciation in context. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Our headline: Trump described King Charles as a friend during his second state visit to the UK earlier this week. So, of course, with the UK, United Kingdom, you need the. This is an exception. The other common exception, of course, is the United States. So just remember those two countries because that's an irregular rule where you require an article the. Now, speaking of this article, the, you also use the with ordinal numbers. Second is an ordinal number. Now, in this case, the possessive pronoun his replaces the article. So you don't need it. But if you don't have the possessive pronoun, you need the article. Ordinal numbers are very common in daily speech because you might say, I live on, I work on, I live on the fourth floor. So notice the ordinal number comes before the noun. We have the noun, floor, and then the ordinal number. Fourth, this is how you would write it with the number, with the th, and then this is how you write it fully. Fourth, fourth. The fourth floor. Now, we also make statements about the first time, the second time, the 100th time. So hopefully you're saying this isn't the first time I've watched your news lessons. Hopefully you're saying that. The first time. This is the 12th time. The 100th time. Too many times to count, Jennifer, you might be thinking. So just remember that ordinal number. But again, if you have a possessive, you don't use the article with ordinal numbers. Trump described King Charles as a friend. So notice, you describe someone or something as, now you could use an adjective as friendly. That would be the adjective, and you don't use articles with adjectives. But we have a singular countable noun, so you need an article here to go with the noun. This is also a very common question because someone might ask you, oh, how would you describe your hometown? IELTS question, how would you describe your teamwork skills? Interview question, how would you describe the movie? Casual question. So that's a very common question. So to answer, you could say, I would describe, and then whatever the question is, how would you describe learning English with the news, what you're doing right now? I would describe learning English with the news as, what would you say? Now you need an adjective or a noun. So think adjective or noun, what would you say? Hopefully you said something positive like effective as an adjective. Remember, no article. As effective, as efficient, as fun, entertaining, enjoyable, whatever your adjective is. Now with a noun, as a method. But that doesn't give you a lot of information. So you'll most likely use an adjective anyway in this case to describe the noun as an effective method. Now I have to change my article from a method to an effective method because the article has to match with whatever comes directly beside it. Let me spell this correctly for you. Effective method. So you have an adjective or you have a noun, and you can combine the adjective in there as well. So would you describe this method in a positive way with a positive adjective or positive adjective noun combination? If you would, then put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's learn about this visit. Trump made a second state visit. So you can use, of course, visit as your verb. Trump visited the UK for the second time. So you would have to change the sentence structure a little bit. So here you can use the collocation, your verb make, and you make a visit. You make a visit. Trump made and now they're just describing the visit, a second state visit. Trump made a second state visit to the UK. So here you make a visit to a location, but if you just use the verb visit, you wouldn't use to. You would just say Trump visited the UK for the second time. And then you would provide the reason why. This to meet provides the reason why in order to meet with the King and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Describing the visit as an exquisite honor. So same thing here. We have describe something, the visit. So notice here, visit is being used as the noun form again. We know this for two reasons. One, there's an article. Articles don't come before verbs, so that tells you that this must be a noun. And also the part of speech. We have our gerund verb here, so you're not going to have another verb. So you can just identify it mainly from the article and the part of speech. So the visit, it just represents a thing. So it's very common to ask, oh, did you have a nice visit? A visit. Did you have a nice visit with your grandmother, with your cousin, with your friend? So you visited your friend, you visited your grandmother, your cousin, and then someone else is asking you about it as a thing. Did you have a nice visit? Did you have a nice visit? So here, honor is our noun, an honor. An honor. So here we would still use an because notice the pronunciation, honor. The H is silent. So do not say it. It's there for spelling. It is not there for pronunciation. So this sound begins on a vowel. Honor, honor, honor. Exquisite is the adjective that describes the honor. Now, normally we use exquisite to describe something as beautiful or the quality is extremely high. So I could say this flower arrangement is exquisite to mean it's very beautiful. Now, if this were a painting of a flower arrangement, I might say that painting is exquisite to represent the beauty, but also the skill, the quality, the craftsmanship of it. So in this case, an exquisite honor, exquisite is more intensifying the honor to make it sound like a great honor, but great is a very basic adjective. So he wants to use something more formal, more fit for the situation. But you can think of it to describe honor as simply great honor. Describing the visit, something as, don't forget this preposition as. Describe something or someone as something, as an exquisite honor. Adjective, noun. And a sign. So he's describing it as an honor, and he's describing it as a sign of an unbreakable bond. So a bond is another word for connection. It's used between people to describe their relationship as close. Of course, it can be a romantic relationship, your love between you and your husband or wife. You can describe that as our bond, our bond. And unbreakable, of course, means you can't break it. So it's a very nice thing to say. So you can use it in a romantic relationship. You can use it with your friends. You can use it with your family members, bond between siblings, bond between cousins, whatever it might be. And you can also use it in a professional context, your bond between you and your colleagues, your partners in a professional situation between the two countries. So in this case, the bond is between the US and the UK. So describing that bond as unbreakable.
Are you enjoying this lesson?
If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. U.S. President Donald Trump is planning to invite King Charles and Queen Camilla to the U.S. next year. So of course, remember we talked about the UK, the U.S. But question for you, why isn't there an article, the article being the, why isn't there an article here? Do you know why? It would be grammatically incorrect if there were an article, because here, president is being used as a formal title. Now, US actually describes president. When you have a formal title, in this case, president, and then you have the name of the person, you don't use the, but you would use the with president because it's a unique title, just like you would use it with king. But when you have king plus the name of the person, you don't use the article. Here are common ways where you would use the article. Who is the president of the US? You're asking about the unique title. Donald Trump is the president. Again, unique title. Have you ever met the president? Same thing. Have you ever been to the US? Because the US, this is one of our exceptions. You could also say the UK for the question. So here, no article because we have president and then the name. US President Donald Trump is planning to invite. Now here, when you have planning to do something, it means that it's uncertain. It isn't 100%, so it may not happen. So if your friend says to you, we're planning to go to the US next year, you would say, oh, wow, that's great. And you would ask questions about it, but you would know that this is just being presented as an idea. It may not happen. It may happen, but it may not happen. But if your friend says, we're going to the US next year, this is presented as a fact. Now, of course, there is still a chance it may not happen because in life there are many uncertainties, but at the moment of speaking, your friend sees this as a fact. At the moment of speaking, your friend sees this as an idea. So that's an important distinction here. U.S. President Donald Trump is planning to invite. So your verb is plan. This is what you conjugate. In this case, it's conjugated in the present continuous because they're in process now. So the idea is in process now. Is planning, and then you have your infinitive. To invite King Charles and Queen Camilla to the U.S. next year. A senior White House official confirmed to the BBC. The last official state visit by a British monarch to the US took place in 2007. Took place, of course, our verb is take, conjugated in the past simple. You can replace these two words with happened. Happened in 2007. But it's very common to use, oh, when did that take place? When is the meeting taking place? Under the reign of the late Queen Elizabeth. So it just means that under the reign, it means when this visit happened, Queen Elizabeth was in power. That's the reign of. It means she was officially in power. As queen, of course. And here, notice we have late. Of course, this isn't, oh no, I'm going to be late, or oh no, I was late again today. That's not the meaning of it. The late Queen Elizabeth, what does this mean? This is a way of saying that someone is dead in a more polite way than saying dead. And did you notice the pronunciation of rain? Rain, it's exactly the same as rain. It's raining. There's no difference at all. So when you see this word in spelling, you can think of rain, and that will tell you how to pronounce it. And also notice the last official state visit. So you need the here, the last, the first, the last. Let's keep reading. The date of the visit. So again, this is a noun. A noun, you know that because of the article here in the part of speech. The date of the visit, which will come as the U.S. marks its 250th anniversary. 250th. So you need that TH at the end. 250th. 250th. Anniversary remains unclear. Okay, so the date of the visit remains unclear. So this remains in the present simple is conjugated with the date. That's the subject of the sentence. The date remains unclear. This just gives you more information about the date, and this gives you more information about the visit. But because it's separated by dashes, we know that this does not affect the grammar of the sentence. So you can delete everything I highlighted when you're looking at the grammar of this verb. Remains unclear. So if you say something remains unclear, it means you do not have the details. It can also be because you don't know. So it can be because information hasn't been established, or because you just don't know yourself. The information may exist, but you don't know it. So either way, you can say something remains unclear. And let's look at this word here, which grammatically is a verb. We know that because it's conjugated as well. The U.S. marks its 250th anniversary. In this case, the verb mark is being used to mean celebrate, as the U.S. celebrates its 250th anniversary. Now, 250th, this is an ordinal number. It comes before the noun. Now, remember, you can use a possessive pronoun in place of an article, but if the possessive pronoun weren't here, you would say the 250th anniversary. So you could say next year marks the 250th anniversary of the United States. Now, in that case, mark is slightly different in meaning. In that case, it represents. This is a common thing in the English language. We have one word like the verb to mark, and the meaning slightly changes based on the context of how it uses, but you can always just look to the context and try to understand the meaning and what makes sense either grammatically or what makes sense based on the usage of the word. So the U.S. celebrates its 250th anniversary. Next year represents. Next year marks the 250th anniversary of the U.S. The visit is being planned as a separate event from those celebrating the U.S. 250th anniversary celebrations. Okay, so here we have those celebrating the celebrations. That's kind of funny. So those represents the people celebrating the U.S. 250th anniversary celebrations. So in this case, celebrations represents all the things planned to celebrate, to mark the anniversary. Parades, fireworks, bands, food, speeches, games, activities, all of those would represent celebrations according to the official. So according to the official, this They're including this to say that this information above is being provided by a White House official sharing this information with the BBC. That's what we previously learned. Let's keep reading. Trump has often spoken fondly of the UK. So if you speak fondly of someone or something, it means you speak about it with love and kindness and positive, anything positive. So you can speak fondly of your time as a student, or you can speak fondly of when you lived in a certain city or a certain house, or you worked at a certain job, or you traveled to a certain country. You can speak fondly of your trip to the US, for example. Someone might say, it's great that you speak so fondly of your ex-husband or your ex-boss or your ex-business partner. So a relationship has ended, but when you speak about that person, you do so in a positive way. That would be fondly. You can also use it as an adjective, and it would be fond. So you can say, I have memories. Well, what type of memories? I have fond memories. So those are positive memories. I have fond memories of my trip to the US, for example. So of someone or of something. And then we have the adverb and the adjective. Trump has often spoken fondly of the UK, British culture, and the monarchy. And during his recent visit, described King Charles as my friend. So we already talked about this in depth, describe someone as something. Now again, you could say a friend, which we saw above, just a friend. My, of course, is the possessive pronoun. So possessive pronouns replace articles. Citing a source close to Trump, the Independent newspaper reported that the invitation could alternatively be extended to Prince William and Princess Kate. Okay, so here, the invitation, remember that there were reports that the US or Trump is planning to invite King Charles and Queen Camilla, is planning to. It sounds like it's uncertain. It may not happen. It may happen though. Now, alternatively means that you replace one with the other. So the first option was King Charles and Queen Camilla. Another option is Prince William and Princess Kate. But it wouldn't be all four of them. It would be replacing one with the other. So this is done when you present someone with an option. So you can give them one way, and then you can say alternatively, and you give them another way. So let's say you want a reservation at your favorite restaurant on Saturday at 7 o'clock. Now you call them up and they tell you that the only spot they have on Saturday is at 9:30. Now that's quite a bit later than what you wanted. So they might give you another option and use alternatively. Alternatively, we have 7 p.m. on Friday. So they have the time you want, but it's on a different day. But now you have two options, so you get to decide what you want and which one is best for you. Let's keep going. Speaking alongside the US president earlier this week, King Charles also spoke glowingly. So here, glowingly is an adverb as well. It's not a direct replacement to fondly, but it has the same feeling. It's instantly you think of something positive, glowingly, because when you are excited, when you're happy, when you're positive, you glow. That's what people say. also spoke glowingly, so with a lot of positivity of the special relationship between the US and the UK. So again, that special relationship, we could use that bond. We talked about that before, the bond, the unbreakable bond that could represent the special relationship, the close relationship between the US and the UK. I have always admired the ingenuity of the American people and the principles of freedom. So these words are coming from King Charles. We know that they are words someone said because they're in quotation marks, and you always look to the last person reference to understand who said these words. And then we also only have two people here. We have King Charles and then Donald Trump. So because he's talking about the American people, it makes sense that it's King Charles. Which your great democracy, so I guess he's speaking to Trump as he says this, which your great democracy has represented since its inception, he said. So inception, that means the beginning. So we know that next year it will be 250 years because next year marks the 250th anniversary of the US. Let's review ingenuity. You may not be familiar with this. So ingenuity represents cleverness. Cleverness, I think of someone coming up with a lot of new ideas, new ways of doing things. So you can think of it as cleverness, creativity, strategic thinking, ingenuity. And this is the noun form because we have the, so I know it's a noun, the ingenuity of the American people. And that is the end of the article. So I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. Trump described King Charles as a friend during his second state visit to the UK earlier this week. Trump made a second state visit to the UK this week to meet with the King and Prime Minister Keir Starmer, describing the visit as an exquisite honor and a sign of an unbreakable bond between the two countries. U.S. President Donald Trump is planning to invite King Charles and Queen Camilla to the U.S. next year, a senior White House official confirmed to the BBC. The last official state visit by a British monarch to the U.S. took place in 2007, under the reign of the late Queen Elizabeth. The date of the visit, which will come as the U.S. marks its 250th anniversary, remains unclear. The visit is being planned as a separate event from those celebrating the U.S. 250th anniversary celebrations, according to the official. Trump has often spoken fondly of the UK, British culture, and the monarchy, and during his recent visit described King Charles as my friend. Citing a source close to Trump, the Independent newspaper reported that the invitation could alternatively be extended to Prince William and Princess Kate. Speaking alongside the U.S. president earlier this week, King Charles also spoke glowingly of the special relationship between the U.S. and the UK. I have always admired the ingenuity of the American people and the principles of freedom which your great democracy has represented since its inception, he said. Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. Here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.